All right, we are live. Let me get this tweeted out here. Hope everybody had a blessed weekend and a good trading week last week, and getting ready for a new trading week this week. So, lots of exciting stuff coming up. The newsletter's really coming along good. It came out today, so with some really cool swing ideas and some other ideas into the state of the market. So at this point, though, we'll in the live stream we'll take a look at the overall market here. We'll look at the SPX, so the S&P Cash Index, and see how that's looking. Right now, the futures are kind of flat. I guess kind of could be expected if you think about it. Well, I mean, I guess we don't think about it, but we're really really close to all-time highs, right? And so it just seems to me that there's going to be a bit of resistance going into that, but once it breaks through, it could get some potential to the upside too. So let's take a look at where we're at on the monthly. A couple more days left in April. So as we wrap that up, remember last month we had a hammer, so we've seen a continuation bar through that. It's a Marubozu bar where we start and then just continue all the way up with no upper shadow or lower shadow. So pretty bullish action here, over the last month, 2 months. So especially here since the inside month up. So overall trend is still up. One thing you can do, on these, when you see this, is you could start, drawing some trend lines, things like that. It's a little bit harder with the candlesticks, but what we do is we take a look at the bar charts, just so you can get those bottoms if you can. Let's see. So this is a possibility because you have those two bottoms there on the monthly. So we want to watch out, right, for a pullback this way, or we could tighten it up a little bit here. Just kind of get a look there. So you can see that's actually holding really, really well. So just a couple things to keep in mind here as we move forward. So let me put that candlestick back there. Okay, so we can kind of look for pullbacks to these for potential support as we move forward. So from there, let's see the weekly. I mean, obviously, it had a good finish to the week. I tell you, when you look at the longer term time frames, it makes it look super easy. It's like, oh, if I just bought at this doji right here, at the break of that, it would have been great. But you start, going in intraday, and you can do this. This is a great way to swing trade, right? So this is, you just have to know where your stops are and manage your risk, right? Because the distances are bigger, and the bigger the time frames that you get, most often. So right now in the weekly, we still have an open gap right here off of the cloud, right? This hammer off the cloud. This was really interesting several weeks ago when we saw this shooting star right here, because we had this huge move up, right? And nothing. I mean, there's really no. I mean, other than this bar right here, there's really no sign of any, potential pullback or reversal, right? And so when we got this topping tail right here, which took out, lots of areas of resistance, this was looking really interesting, except it was still at this cloud support right here, and then ended up breaking it down slightly, and then finishing with a hammer, gapping up the next week, Marubozu week, momentum hammer, pause day or pause week, and then another push to the upside. So market's still looking fairly strong. We have the Bollinger Band here, the upper Bollinger Band on the weekly is still pointing up, almost over 45 degrees. So that gets pretty significant there. So so good stuff. Let's take a look here on the daily. Pretty amazing bar. This is pretty much a bullish engulfing bar. To be true bullish engulfing, it's the real body should engulf the like this would be a bearish engulfing bar right here, right? Because the real body engulfed both the shadows and the real body of the prior bar. But as long as the real body engulfs the real body of the other one, that's also considered an engulfing bar too. So yeah, not quite a 1, 2, 3 pullback on this one. But this hammer is still very bullish going into this week. I mean, we're really, really close to the all-time highs. I mean, we're really like a dollar. What is it? Let's go back to let's take a look at the. So 240.91 was the high, and we closed at 239.88. So like a 1.03 points from the all-time high. So you'd really think we'd probably hit that, but the market gets funny. I mean, look at the upper Bollinger Band's kind of curled down a little bit. We haven't seen a curl down in this in a while. Not since over here and over here where we had a couple. We saw some down moves that were in that zone. So just keep that in mind. So we still have to use a little bit of caution moving forward. Other than that, let's take a look at the price action. What we saw on Friday, going into the weekend. Let's see. So let's go to the 26. These are the levels for the 26. If you're part of the newsletter, I tweet these out in the private Twitter feed. They're just levels that we look at every day. These are floor pivot levels. We've done some free videos on it and all that stuff. but so we have the daily levels, the weekly levels, the monthly levels. These are really important pivot points, plus volumetric levels that we calculate from the SPY, and then we have the daily high and low close. So, but anyway, good stuff. So this is just something to look at, when you're trading intraday, looking at price action. So a couple things that happened on Friday is, had some bearish price action, so it was continuation, right, from the prior day. So it got a little bit of a move to the downside. If you just started to plot. There's a couple things you could have done. You could have done the plot from up here and down, but just using the day trade action, doing the day trade price action. So if you remember our series from last week where we went over price action, right? So you could apply this at all times. That's what we're going to talk about today in a little bit. Is applying these price action techniques on any time frame, right? Because it really doesn't matter, right? What time frame you're on, right? I mean, see all these candles here. I mean, what's the difference between this and weekly and monthly, right? Other than there's maybe more candles, in a shorter period of time. But we start to see the same price action that we can trade off. That's why trend lines. So I drew those trend lines on the monthly just so we can start to keep track of that stuff, right? So anyway, to push to the downside. So here we go. So the trend was still down as of yesterday. I mean, if you really wanted to do it, we could have taken just going into the next day. Like here was this right into here, right? So essentially we gapped a little bit above it, but there is some pre-market space in here, which is really, if we took that out, I think. Let's see. Show extended hours trading. One second. Let this thing. Let this thing do that. Okay. So let's just kind of look. See here. So here you can see now this bar. Kind of going into the next day. You can just kind of see. We take this, draw it there, right? So you can see here that clearly the trend was down, right? Going into the next day. So, as long as you're following trend, right, you can, trade in the direction of the trend or pullbacks to it until you see a breakthrough of it, right? So these trend lines were obviously really close together, just, slightly, but, if we came from this high, to this pullback here, this was a bear flag here, and then it pushed down to the downside, and look where it came off. It came right off of R1, right? And then we had a double bar, right? 2 bars, 2 wicks. So, right off of this is a weekly resistance level that became support. So this one here became an engulfing bar, right? Engulfed, and the real body engulfed the real body, and the shadows engulfed the other one. So still not the purest definition of it, but it still is bullish engulfing. So, and a nice reversal bar too. This really basically shows you, hey, this trend, right, might be ending right here. So we had this bar, and then a little bit of a pullback right here. Inside bar, we talked about that last week, a belt hold bar, and then just a nice follow through up here all the way to the prior day's close, all through the daily pivot, which is another key level that we look at. And these are things that we look at in the private Twitter too. If we see a nice setup, we look to take those. So this pullback here to the daily pivot level, again, double bottom shadow right at the daily pivot level, nice nice reversal bar right here. It closes just over the prior day's close and then launches to the upside. So, and that's where you see most of the action for the most part, is right in that, kind of these opening areas. You look for reversals or continuations. Then usually we've been seeing, some chop in the afternoon recently is, kind of standard. And then we had this huge push into the close. This is kind of the key bar right here. Red bar, but the long lower shadow that tagged the cloud, and then that's your confirmation bar here to the downside, or to the upside. So let me do the trend line here, right? So kind of to this level ish, right? So we could have looked at it a couple different ways. We could have looked at it here to here, right? So, or here, right? Even to here, right? Because that tagged a couple different levels here, 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 and here, right? Belt hold bar over that, inside bar, break to the upside, pause up, right? Bull flag, and then back up. So kind of shows you the price action. Obviously, when you look at the weekly, it's like, wow, it didn't seem that easy. But man, when you have a final bar like this, I mean, just is pretty amazing push into the close, right? So good stuff there. So that kind of gives us some clues. And let's just take real quick one quick glance at the SPX overall as we move into the next week. So we have the that 2018 channel that's kind of been coming across and has served as a great guide for us, kind of going through all of 2018, and then looking for support and resistance areas into 2019, right? So once we had this low that kind of came in through Christmas, we have this nice pitchfork here, which takes the all-time high to this low, that came through the Christmas time frame there, and then then kind of pushed its way back up. So once it got into the channel, see how it held in there a little bit, got to the midpoint, the pitchfork median line, came up, retested it, and then back up. So now we're at this midpoint line between the median and the upper pitchfork, and let's see if we can get through that. If we can, we might slowly work our way up to this like 3020 level, and then see if we kind of come down off of that. So lots of stuff to keep in mind. So in general, going into this week, so obviously, there's a good chance that we hit the all-time highs, and from there, I don't know how hard the bears are going to push to try to put it back down. So we just have to be cautiously optimistic going into this week is kind of the theme that I'm going for. So that being said, I want to this week's series is going to be pretty interesting. What I wanted to do is take some winning trades, and I think this is really important for everybody's trading. Is to find big moves, right? Whatever time frame you're most comfortable trading on, and analyzing the big moves that happened, and determining, what we can do differently, or what we could have changed in our trading to maybe have capitalized on those. And that's the thing with trading is, these setups happen all the time, right? And a lot of times they work, and some have higher percentages than others. And if they work 70% of the time, as long as you're controlling your risk on it, and you can catch these setups. You can you just let the trade work, right? That's the goal. That's the point of trading, right? So is to manage the risk and then try to capitalize on the big moves. Now, when you kind of zoom out here, right? I mean, we had this whole buy the dip scenario going up all the way from like 2015 all the way to 2018, right? And things are starting to get really interesting, right? I mean, this was it. This is kind of like the biggest blip back in 2015. But other than that, I mean, we've had some kind of major action here. So everybody who's part of this and is learning to trade, and hopefully everybody is learning to trade, no matter how experienced you are, there's always something to learn. This is some major stuff that's happening right here. Like over the last year, we've been to all-time highs, several times in a row. We've had huge corrections. We've had like one of the largest and the best recoveries of all time. So really, you're trading through some amazing stuff right here. So just be sure to journal all your stuff and learn from these lessons. These are key times right here that when we eventually get into an uptrend like this, you're making super profits. Or if we get into a bear market and this sort of turns into this big macro shift to the downside, then you'll be comfortable, shorting, into a bear market or through a bear market. So really cool stuff right there. So just remember that. So this week I want to take a look at. We're going to take a look at some big winning trades that happened pretty recently that. Either we took advantage of in the private Twitter, or we played along with individually, or missed completely, and we just kind of look back and see. But these are the type of things that we take advantage of. So the first one I want to look at here for today is Amazon, and we'll run through it quick. And sort of the other thing I wanted to incorporate with it is the title of this is options on Amazon too. And everything we look at here is primarily trade options, and in the private Twitter if you do options. And so it's just a safe way to trade and manage risk. So I'll show you, what I look at if I'm going to be trading. So a certain setup. So let's take a look here at Amazon. Let's go to the daily candlestick chart, and I want to show you here a really cool reversal that ended up happening, right? So this is back on March 8th, so not too long ago, right? Just about a month and a half or so ago, we had a pretty amazing pullback, right? So, the whole time when we were going up from those all-time lows, right, from here, right? So it had this big push up, had some sideways action, some pretty big moves and all that stuff. But the whole time, we think kind of going through here, when's this thing going to correct all the way back down again? And you just have to look for the best setups that you can find. And so what happened here is we had this major pullback to the cloud. So this is really important. That's why I like using the cloud, because it is significant, right? So it just takes moving averages and projects it forward, but enough algorithms use it and people use it where that it becomes significant, right? So so this pullback to the cloud here, the daily cloud, what did it do? It reversed off of it and gave it a hammer, right? Which is really nice. But look what the setup is right here. Okay, does anybody know what that is? If you've checked out our flashcards or the flashcard video that we have on the YouTube page, this is a morning star setup, right? We have a big bearish bar as day one. Day two we gap down, right? And we have we close, the real body completely closes, is completely contained underneath, right, the day one bar. And then day two, this is perfect too because it gapped up and went, right? So this is we finish at least midpoint of day one. Day three finishes at least midpoint of day one. So what we have here is a morning star setup, just a beautiful setup and a very high probability setup for going long. And Interestingly enough, one of the stocks that we have in the newsletter this week is also a Morningstar setup. So so subscribers are going to be hopefully enjoying that throughout the week. But let's just continue. So when you look at this, we look at what are we thinking, right, when we're trading. So there's a couple things you could do, right? You could trade off of this hammer off of the cloud. That's not a horrible setup. But if we saw the next day, you don't have to feel like you missed the whole move because this actually created a new setup. So so you still could enter on the 11th, right? So it was over the weekend. You still could enter on the 11th. And so what we want to look at, so let's just kind of push this over to the right here, and you can kind of see, right, what it looks like. So here, kind of pulling back. Oh no, everything's, going horrible with Amazon. It's already, gone down 100 points in 4 days, but, it recovered with this bar, right? So, and then the next day, even if you're not willing to go long, sure, you're upset because you missed this one. So you just have to look and be like, okay, what am I going to do? So the next day, you could put on a position. And so how do we do that with options? Well, Amazon, as you guys know, is expensive. And typically the premiums are high because it's an expensive stock. But I'll show you real quick. And what I would do in this situation is just look for your next target, right? So when we trade intraday, we look for targets on levels. On daily time frames, you can do the same thing, but it's also helpful to look for pivot points, right? So the next major area is this zone right here. And why do we look there? Well, that's because people are short here, right? Even if people got short here, right, or got short here, they're still keeping stops up here, right? Even over this level right here. So whatever this pivot zone is right here, 1710. So that is a good spot to potentially target, right? Because if it breaks through that level, right, those shorts that are up there are going to start covering, and you're going to get a little bit of push through on it. Excuse me. And so it's also, I mean, you can kind of see I have this golden channel kind of going down here. So you could, your target could be the top of the channel, it could be the upper Bollinger Band, it could be the 200-day moving average. But I look for pivots, when working on the daily. So that's a good target right there. So if we enter that, what we do is we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in an Amazon call. And so let's just go to the. Let's say we enter that day. So I'm going to say .amazon, and then it would be 19, and then 03. And then let's just, well, no, because what we want to do is when I swing, you want to go farther out, right? So you don't get the theta stuff. So I'm going to go to the April close, right? So that was the 18th. The monthlies were the 18th. It was a Thursday because it was a short week because that Friday was was off, right? And so Good Friday. And so so those are the monthlies right there. So we do the call, and then let's do the 1700 calls and see what those look like right there. Okay, so these are obviously really expensive, right? Because they're out of the money. Well, not super expensive, but they're out of the money calls. And now I have to. It's not going to give me the same type of coolness that we had just there. Let me see if I can just kind of get out of there. All right, so let's find the 11th right here. Okay, so these are the calls, right? So this is a chart of the options, and so forgive all the I can remove all this these Bollinger Bands and stuff. Let me do that real quick. Remove all studies. Let's do that so it doesn't look so messy. Okay. All right, so there we go. So there's a pivot we're targeting. Well, sorry, that was the prior pivot of these calls. So here we look at this. The options themselves gave a Morningstar reversal, and so there's a couple things you could do. You could look at the in the money calls, right? So that are about 70 0.70 delta. I can't really pull up the delta right now. But let's just say my target is there, and Amazon's expensive, so I would look at that. So I would look at entering here around, the next day. If we broke above that, just say like around 40, right? And then your stop here is, at the low of this bar, right? That's how you trade the Morningstar reversal. I mean, you can keep your stops here at this bar, but a true Morningstar reversal, it could come back and then launch and all that stuff. So to say here, so really what you're risking is, if you have $4,000, let's say you have $4,000 here, your stop is at $2,000. You're risking $2,000. Okay, and then let's see what happens the next day. So these are your options. So we move here. Okay, so your $4,000, it went all the way as high as $4,500. So you could have taken $500 profit, and it came back in. So this is scary, right? So now you're down 200. At one point, you're down 400. So you just have to decide what your threshold is. But the idea is you're trying to get here. You're trying to get $60, right? To get to $6,000. So you can make $2,000 on your trade. So it's a good one-to-one risk reward on that. And depending on what your risk threshold is, you could have 10 of these things, and you're looking to make $60,000, and then you just you trim your options as you go up. So okay, so here the next day it goes up a little bit, right? So you could take $1,000 win right there. There's nothing wrong with that, and it came back in. So these, some scary, candles that you look at, but you're, it's still doing its thing. Oh, that's getting really scary right there. It's coming right back to your entry level, and this is the hard part, right? So anytime when you're trading, when you get a little bit of a move, do you take profit or do you let it start coming back in? And that is just a matter of your trading comfort, right? I'm often really just happy just taking a $500 trade, or whatever the case is. But I just want to show you what happens if if you're patient and let things go. So, and that's why risk is really important. If $4,000 is a lot to invest, right? Don't trade Amazon, right? Trade AMD or something like that, where you can get the same setups. And so, boom, right there. So now it's getting really close to it. So now you could have taken profit at $6,000. That wouldn't have been a bad place to do it. So let's say we took it there. All right, so we're profitable, maybe $1,500 trade or $1,700 trade. Okay, we're happy over 1, 2, 3, 4 days. Made $2,000. Everything's great. Okay, but let's just see how it played out. Oh, look at that. 80 up to $80, right? On a 4,000, so doubled right there. Let's just see if it went. Oh, it went higher, all the way up to 105. I mean, I would definitely be taking profit at that point because the pivots cleared and it went up right here, and then it came back in and gave you that big shooting star. But it went higher too, so up to 120. So even higher, so 140. So you can see these reversals are very strong, right? And then it ended up just chopping for a little bit. And honestly, it went all the way up to expiration. It went up to $174, all the way from from 40. So pretty solid move right here. But again, this is all about risk, right? It's all about understanding your risk and what you can handle. And if you can handle the pullbacks, right, then you can take advantage of letting things run, right? And so and then that's why it's good, if you have multiple, if you can afford to have 10 of these, right? You could have taken 10 off right here. You make your $5,000 right there. You have your stop right here, and it ends up stopping you out. It's kind of a wash, and but then if it comes up here, you get the really big gains, right? And you can still trim and trail as as the candles move up. So you have move a stop here, move a stop here, move a stop here, move a stop here, right? So so that just kind of shows you. So these are the type of stuff we're going to look at this week. Kind of show you the different type of options I look at when I'm trading. So this particular situation, because I can't really see the deltas right here. If anything, I might look at a 0.70 delta, which will get close to more trading the real stock as long as you push your time out as far as possible. But if I'm scalping or I'm looking for just a short swing trade, I'm going to look for a potential target to hit, and then might buy those as well. So. And those can, obviously you can see those can explode too. So really good stuff right there. So I hope you guys found that helpful. At this point, if anybody has any questions or chart requests, please feel free to plug those in the chat window. I'm going to start with one really quick because I had a DM and I promised I'd get to it. So let me just start with that, and then we'll move on to everybody's stuff. So let's take a look at HUN. So this is a Huntsman Corp. So pretty interesting stuff right now. There's a couple different things that are going on. In general, it is we are in a downtrend, right? So we draw our trend lines. It's best to actually go. Let me add my studies back here. Load studies. What do I like? Let's just daily. Let's go daily. Add all that junk back in there. All right. So let's go here. Okay, so Huntsman, right? We you guys know we like to look at these volumetric levels. It's really important, right? Because this is where there's buyers and sellers, right? So this is a volumetric high, right? And it had a nice move up, but look, it's heading right into resistance. So it needs to get over that 2340 level. And so let's draw a trend line right here. And just kind of keep an eye on this, so we can use this. Yeah, it's a little bit easier with the bar charts, right? So what we did is we tagged that support level. So we're kind of up off of it. May want to retest it. Sometimes we do a retest and then launch. So just keep that in mind. So in general, it's looking pretty bullish. If we add a channel to the top of it, right? We go like this. Just kind of see like the upward channel zone too. So, so a potential target, might be getting up to this 28 area too. So it's got some pivots to take out too to get there. So it does make sense that is a possibility. The earnings are coming out on the 30th. So just be careful going into that, right? So that's kind of the big thing right there. But let's see what it does. So, but definitely really interesting stuff. So in the meantime, let's go back to the chat window and welcome everybody, and great to see everybody. So, we'll try to get through as many chart requests as we can. Tomorrow's Monday, so hopefully everybody's really rested, but I'll try to get to as many as I can. Nudie Poo, what's going on? Happy weekend. Shirley, how are you? Good to see you. Session, what's going on? Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Raphael, what's going on? Good to see you, man. Harvey, always a pleasure. Bruce, what's up? La Machine Polonaise, what's up? Duty Poo, can we do VFF? Yes, and thank you for asking that one. That was an interesting one too. I know we've looked at this before. Um, it was looking really good, and then it had some nasty news right here this day. If you guys could, I can't remember what it was. What was the news? What day was that? That was back on the 16th. So and there was yeah, it didn't like yeah, Citron came out, right? And we're saying like they were run by like they're being pumped up by like some stock promoting company and all that stuff. But anyway, just ignoring all that stuff, let's look and see what the technicals are showing us. So I mean, it was down, it was from $3 and up to $18, so that does make it a little bit interesting. But it is holding these Fibonacci fan levels pretty well from this prior trough to this peak. So it held this. Look how it held that really well. Came back up, right? Held. So it is potential right here. So as long as it holds these levels, right, that it could work its way back up to that 14 level, that $14.10. It's got earnings coming up on 5/9, so that's something to keep an eye on. But in general, it hasn't been plummeted down to down to $3 again. So there might be some value in this. So there's something more than Citron is trying to, what is it? What does he do? Dump and pump, or instead of pump and dump? I can't remember, but anyway, pretty interesting stuff there. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. Let's check our cloud too on the daily. Okay, so it's in the cloud right here as well. Inside day prior, so it didn't it closed like slightly below that, but if we can break this Southern Doji tail to the upside, get a tail fail to the upside over the 50-day moving average, and right here is your upper Bollinger Band right at the upper cloud. So this is going to be tough to trade, but it could kind of just sort of see how this is kind of a choppy mess through here. It could choppy mess its way up, and once you get to the volumetric level, you're also at the cloud level, and then you could get a break there. Unfortunately, it might correspond with earnings, and trading through earnings is really tough. So putting on a long entry right here is tough. It's tough to do for me. So yeah, good stuff. Session, let's take a look. So oh boy, I know this was one that was on the radar. I know Thanson was looking at this, and it was something that we had on our radar too in the newsletter. But nice breakout a couple days ago out of the cloud, right? So we had this push out here, pause day, and then launched the upside, retagged it, right? So very painful Pinocchio trade right there. Came back down, retagged the cloud one more time, and then just launched on earnings. I mean, just ridiculous, right? So wouldn't that be annoying? You're long here, you get stopped out on that thing, and then to see it just go all the way up here, not cool. So, but anyway, at this point, it's holding its gap really well. So I would look for setups in this range. If anything, maybe we could get like some sort of like a pennant type thing, to kind of this gap area. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on it right now. But it is looking very bullish. So in general, so it's holding that gap really well. RIBT, Ribbit. Let's see. So overall trend is down, right? So I mean, just very obvious, right? So from the just drawing a straight trend line here is gonna be tough, but you could do one from here. So just kind of that type of thing. So is it working on breaking that trend? Maybe it's got the 200-day moving average right here. If we had an inside day up with a hammer bar, so this might be a slight break over it, or it might just be tagging it. But we're in a very key zone right now, so this is really interesting. One to look at, right? So it's also very thinly traded. Okay, so you're only looking at 14,000 shares, so 34,000 shares. So don't get stuck in this thing, right? So this is really, really tough to trade, and I'm not even sure how the options are on it. If it doesn't even have options, so just be really, since you're only trading the common on this thing, be really, really careful trading it, right? So I mean, if it breaks out through this trend line, it might come back down again, and that's your level. That it's got to break that 310 level, and then it could work its way up. You have to stop here just below that maybe say like 289 or something like that. So just manage the risk on that. So yeah, so careful with that one just because of the volume. Win, how's Win doing? We haven't seen this one in a while. Let's go to the daily. Okay, yeah. So remember, this is our little theory that we had here. So we had this potential move to the upside. Now it didn't quite go up, then down, then up. It did go down, then up, then down, then up. So, but it is sort of following our general projected path. So this was our area, right, that we wanted to hit, this volumetric area, and it broke through it. So my thought here is that it would pull back to this maybe this 144 area, retest that zone, and then break to the upside. It looks like we do have an open gap up here too at this 158, so that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, we came up with this because of the pitchfork, right? So in general, the pitchfork was from this low here to this major high and low, and we looked to see how it handled that the lower end of the pitchfork. We had a pivot right here, and that kind of moved up nicely to the upside. So I would still expect a little bit of consolidation because we're in kind of a major congestion zone here, and then an eventual break, to start filling some gaps. So, but yeah, so nice bullish activity on that recently. CRM. CRM. Looking really interesting right here. So we had a couple reaction lines of action-reaction lines there, as we plotted this thing. The one interesting technical thing we pointed out recently was this triangle, right? So what ended up happening is it looked like it was breaking down the triangle, but as is very common with triangles, we get the undershoot and then the push back up. And so that's what happened up here, undershoot, push back up. So that undershoot was actually good, and it was a hammer bar here, was good from 155 all the way up to 165. So a nice 10-point move there. It's sort of flirting with the top of this pitchfork, and so let's see how it handles that. If it ends up pivoting, it might try again that 158 zone. So just keep that in mind. If it breaks through it, again, usually the breaks come up, come down, test, and then give another push to the upside. This is something we looked at too. This divergence. Using the RSI, we've done a few discussions on RSI, but I do like drawing this trend lines on RSI as well, especially in these kind of choppy periods. And so look what happened here. Once it broke this, right, this downward trend line on the RSI, these two major pivots, right, what did it do? Launched. So we broke right here and then pushed to the upside, right? So that's another thing to keep an eye on with that. So MNST. Monster. Okay, so we've got earnings coming up pretty soon on this one. In general, it's been holding up pretty well over some major volumetric levels. It hasn't touched those in a while. So at this point, what I would do is, looks like we can draw some sort of channel here. So let's do that. Something like this. I mean, there's kind of zones here. I mean, that looks pretty consistent because it hit that hop and that top. This is kind of a breakout over through it, came back down into it. Now it's holding up, down, pivot. So it does look good, but again, always be careful trading to earnings, right? I do like I do like this, right? So we had a trend line there. So we had these oversold conditions, right? And then this was a low, followed by another low with a bullish divergence on that, right? And then it came up, really pushed really high, and then again, it's still following this kind of trend line right here. So see if it gets to overbought condition, but again, watch out for earnings. That's sort of the big caution on that one. So what else? You have you got some really good stocks right here. So I am gonna hit all of these because they're really good stocks to look at. So SFIX. Gosh, it looks a lot like Bitcoin, doesn't it? And we analyzed this. We did a bunch of Elliott Wave stuff on this too. So we had 1, 2, 3, ABC, 4, 5, and then we were looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, and then ABC down. This might have been your C down, and then now, so this could be, for instance, like a wave 1. This could be a wave 2, and it might be working on working its way up. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on. So it's starting to look and start. Let's just make sure it gets over 27. Before starting to look for some bullish positions on it. So I think it got beat up recently. I guess it wasn't that recently, but back in March. So it's heading up into earnings again soon, but it might get a little bit of a run up into it up to that. So I'm thinking 27 possibly to 33. Maybe or maybe 31 before earnings or something like that. But it looks like it could try to get to 29 or 30 before then. So that looks pretty interesting. Ulta is a IBD. It's the IBD 50. Most expensive stock, so it is sort of a highly rated one by them, and we've been stocking this one, and it's been working quite well. So a few interesting pivots here through a pitchfork that we looked at, gapped up above it, so that's very bullish, and not just mostly consolidation right here. So this is kind of one where you just want to draw like a box around it there type thing, and just kind of see how it handles it. It's always tough at all-time highs, this 359 kind of area. So So yeah, so just be careful buying at all-time highs, but a breakdown of that channel could retest, could retest at least that gap zone of 327. So that looks pretty cool. Costco, great stock. So pretty amazing stuff. It was looking really bearish. It had some rough earnings, a couple earnings seasons ago, 2 earnings seasons ago. The last one, here, like back here, it was just like, whoa, it was a great short back, back then. It was really just, it was looking for some more short, potential, but like everything else, this thing just kept on ripping again. So again, we're pulling back here to, a couple major zones. So you can see this was, a resistance zone right here. It was also a prior gap area. So we're pulling, it looks like it's pulling back to that kind of 240 zone. That looks like a potential area where we might find some support. So, and could maybe get an earnings run, coming up soon. So that was a good one there. TTD, the very tough stock to trade, right? But if you can catch it, it really moves. Again, we had a triangle break to the upside. Just be careful. This is not one of those overshoots here and then back down, right? So, but indeed, the break of that was pretty strong. So, if anything, you might see a test back to that 200 level, right? So a psychological level. I don't know how long it would take to do it, but earnings coming up in a couple weeks, so so it looks pretty interesting. And then last but not least, AVGO, Broadcom. So we've been tracking this one for a little bit. So we had this, these fib levels way above that. Basically, right now it's in the pitchfork, a very long-term pitchfork, right? So held these median lines, kind of pivoted right here at the upper pitchfork. So unfortunately, it might look like it might get a little push to retest this gap zone, which is right here at 286, and then you got earnings coming up after that, which point, it might bounce after that, that type of thing. So, but this is a very weak pivot that it's showing right here. So you can see how when it pivots like that, it gets some down move, right? So just be careful with that. Yep. So there we go. NetPry, what's up? Bruce, what's going on? BAC. Okay, so BAC. Gosh, amazing little thing, isn't it? Sometimes. So yeah, this is one we've been tracking too, and a couple earnings ago, it had this nice gap, came down when it was getting really, really weak, tested that gap, filled it, right, handled the fib fan line, and worked its way back up, broke through that zone, this support zone, and kind of launched its way up. So now it's like trying to figure out what it is, right? It was also sort of an inverse head and shoulders, nice break to the upside, and so now it's just will it get follow through? It's at this point it does have these prior resistance zones might become support, and then we'll just have to look for some constructive action or some interesting setups that come along the way. I would like to see a pullback of some sort, but I would imagine a pullback of any type, maybe to this 28 area, could be bullish. So it's good stuff. And iRobot, nice one. iRobot closed at 100, had a real nasty move to the downside. As you guys, you might have seen on Twitter, we were talking about this after earnings, and I was like, I could probably hit 100 and then reverse, and then lo and behold, it kind of hit those levels, and then hit those levels that day, came down again, and is retesting a prior gap. So at that point, where we are right now, I can't imagine it wouldn't at some point test that. And that also happens to correspond to kind of this pitchfork low area, and then I could see it getting some stuff coming in. So I'm going to put actually an alert on this one to watch. This is a good one to swing. It's really tough to trade intraday because the spreads on the options are nasty. The spread on the common is nasty too. So just be careful with that one. So we'll just put an alert on iRobot there to see if it's has some potential. Good stuff. Prayer Kid, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hope you had a great weekend. Ayaz, what's up? So good evening, new subscriber. Yes, welcome, and always appreciate you. And thank you for joining. Let's take a look at Coop. Wow, this one's come up on a lot of different radars recently. I guess they do. Was this one other like cloud type of company? I have to just check to see. Yeah, Coupa software. Yeah, cloud-based stuff. Okay, cool. So these Vive and Coops and all that stuff have been pretty strong. Let's do a fib fan here from the low to that 22 all the way up here. Wow, wouldn't it be nice to have bought that there all the way up here? Holding these fib fan levels really well, breaking to the upside. I mean, this is nice, choppy, consolidation behavior, and then broke out through those levels up here. So again, always be careful buying at these highs. I wouldn't look to short it, but if it does, pull back, I would look for some interesting pullback areas, maybe to 100, see how it handles 100, and then look at that 93. But right now, it's just so hard to buy up here, right? So, but you see how it pushed up here, did very similar, chopped around, and then came down, right? And gave a couple of pullbacks that were potentials for entry, and it took a while, and it gave you this double, recent double bottom right here as it filled these gaps, and then came to the upside. So this is really, really complicated price action. So for me, it's totally be hands off. But in general, so I would look for a pullback. I mean, even a pullback here to like 81 would be sweet, that type of thing. But even after that, it gets real choppy after a while. CRM, we took a look at Docu. Really great action. This was highlighted in the newsletter a couple weeks ago, and this is what we saw. Let me go to the daily chart right here. So we were in the cloud, right? And I don't like trading in the cloud. I like breakouts of cloud, but sometimes you can trade toward a breakout of it, and this one gave you a perfect one right here. So this hammer bar, right, big bottoming tail, right, held some key support areas like back here, back here, back here, and there was some consolidation stuff back there. So it held that really well. So a break of this hammer to the upside ended up being good, breaking through volumetric level, held, and then just kept on working its way up. So you had your kind of a three-way soldier type thing. This wasn't quite in its range, but it didn't open in that range, but it did touch below it. No gaps and all that stuff. And then it broke out of your cloud up here. So at this point, it's hard to go long. Right now, because it was a pretty big move. It took out these pivots, which is normally my first target. So I wouldn't want to go long here, but I would look to see if it does pull back and test like this 56 level to see if that gives a chance for entry. WLTM. Waltham Industries. This one might not pull up for me. I'm going to have to skip this one. It's just not pulling up for me. Sometimes they don't pull up here, but it looks not very heavily traded. So just be careful with that one. So okay, so now ServiceNow is another tech one. Big push to the upside. Nice gap up. Tried to test the gap and gave you a nice hammer right here. So right now it's looking really bullish. Again, you're at these all-time highs, so it is tough to buy up here. You don't know if there's anybody willing to sell, right? So you'd be buying, but you might be the only buyer. That's always tough. So when you see gaps like this, what I like to look for is more consolidation, right? Now you could trade. You could try a break of the this 269.27. That works, but at all-time highs, it's a little bit tougher. So what I like to do is look for a little bit, maybe some consolidation down in here, and then trade a break to the upside, right? See how it holds that gap. If it holds it real well, it breaks out. That could give a nice push to the upside, right? So, and even like an inside bar in here or something like that, or a double inside bar could give some movement to the upside. So good stuff. TuneFed, what's up? Good work. Oh man, my pleasure, man. Hope some yeah. I'm on Disney. I'm going to talk about this week. It's going to be on Thursday. That's going to be part of the big move series. We'll talk about that huge one here. But congratulations on that move on Disney. Nice job, man. Robin, how are you? Good to see you. Jimmy, what's up? Glad you made it, man. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Manoj, what's up? Oh, Xilinx. Thanks for bringing that one up. Yes, so Xilinx. Gosh, great stocks tonight, guys. Everybody's looking at good stuff. Just have to have the right setup. So Xilinx is actually looking really, really good right here. So not quite a morning star setup on this one, but like we looked at earlier, right? The Docu. This is a nice bottoming tail in this cloud. Let's see if that corresponds to any kind of major support type stuff. There's this level right here. This is like that 161.8 retracement. So we held this level pretty well. This is looking really bullish. I like this. So it's worth, I would say, a speculative long. Over this hammer. So I'm gonna put an alert on that. Looks really good. So there, we might see a little consolidation, but if we break to the upside, I mean, you have the range of this bar is $8-9, right? So if you're gonna go, let's say you're going for a cloud break, and that cloud break you get a little bit over, by the end of the 50-day movement, say 130, right? So if we look at the 130s, well, we want to give it, May should be okay. You just gotta be careful when you go out of the money when it's close like that. But let's see. So the 130s are about $1, and look, you can see there's a lot of open interest in there too. So those look pretty good, the 130s. Or you could trade the 0.7 range here. You could trade the in the money ones. They're about $6, right? So when you trade here, it's a little bit easier to manage, right? Because your stop is like $10 away. So you basically just have your stop there, right? So if it gets to that level. So what you do is you look at the 115s and you look at the recent low. So buy, we'll copy this here. Let's look at the option chart. So you would do is, you would look to enter, right? a breakout here through this hammer on the options, and then so say like around $6, $6.50, then your stop is at 225. So you have a 4-point risk on that. So you just have to be careful, right? So if you buy $6,000, you're risking $4,000, right? So just be be careful with that. So but if it does break, or you've got the potential of moving up in here, into the zone, you get to $13 or something like that, and then that's a nice trade. So so something to keep an eye on there, and that's the in the money trade, right? If you do the out of the money ones, the 130s, you're looking at a little less risk, but you get the chance to run into more theta decay because you only have that's all you have, right? You don't have like true intrinsic value in it, right? If you're out of the money. So here, a break to the upside, let's say you can get it for over $1 right here. Your stop is just under 30 cents, right? So you're risking 70 cents on that one, right? So you obviously gauge accordingly, right? If you get 10 of those, you're risking $700 basically. But if it gets up here, if you have 10 of them, right, and it gets to this area, you have three. From $1,000, you make $3,000. So it is looking pretty interesting here. So I really like the Xilinx setup too. So nice one on that. NVIDIA, good stuff. This is a good one to keep on the watch list. It's got some interesting behavior. The candlestick right here is a potential hanging man, but it did hold this 50-day moving average pretty well. So it's kind of what they call like a holy grail setup. But there's a nice gap above now, but there's also room below to touch the cloud. So we just have to kind of see how the price action holds up on this one. It is working on a big pivot down. So right now the trend is down. So just have to be careful. The new trend is kind of trending downward. So just have to be careful off of that pivot. So really interesting price. I will keep an eye on that one for sure. And then Apple earnings coming up. What is it, Tuesday night? So, so premium is going to start getting really expensive. If it's anything like everything else, it'll probably just have earnings and neither go up nor go down and just give kind of a chop type stuff. I do like this pullback, three days down. It looks like it's ready for, potential pop to the upside. But again, we got to watch our premiums as we go into earnings. But if it does pop, right, you could get, the premiums on your side and, that little earnings run type stuff. So it did kind of come back. I've had these fib arcs up here for a while. It's been holding this arc up. So it kind of got above it a little bit and then pulled back in. So now it's going to pull up this thing, whatever this is. So sorry. But hopefully that was clear for that. Raphael, let's take a look at GS. So GS is looking pretty cool. I'm liking this, it's not a Morningstar reversal, but I do like the reversal hammer on the daily with potential to tag this upside channel again here at like 206. Of course, if that breaks, you get a tail fail to the downside. You can test this cloud somewhere around 197. So Goldman's tough to trade. So it really is. But here, this was an evening star reversal right here and barely got any follow through on it, right? So you had this, except this should have been a green bar. So not really a true evening star reversal, but yeah, you would have expected some follow through after that, but nothing, right? So it's just a real tricky stock to trade. For me, kind of hands off it. Even when I get a big move on it, sometimes the options hardly move. So it is tough. It's a tough one. JP Morgan's my preferred financial stock to trade because it moves and it's heavily weighted in the XLF, and it's pretty neat there. So Walgreens is getting there. We've been kind of keeping an eye on this one. It's had this big gap down here, and it's been holding kind of this level. And again, I think something we talked about is sort of the end of May is look for some sort of action to happen on it, just going off of these cycles. These are kind of some key levels. Nice reversal bar right here, except no volume on it. That's the only thing that scares me. If we had some volume like this or like even halfway of this on a hammer, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, things are looking good. But still, right now, trend is down, right? I mean, obviously, but even short-term stuff. I mean, if you just drew a trend line here, just see how that holds, right? If we just connect those levels, so just keep that in mind with that. CCL. Very interesting, right? Almost looked like it was going to break down out of the cloud recently, but never got any confirmation on that one. So just kind of chopped around. It's kind of working its way up. I would just keep an eye on this one. Short-term trend is, long-term trend is up, but short-term trend, down, and short-term trend is up. So it's been holding these levels, right? So held this level, may kind of come back down to the cloud here, and then eventually we might get a cloud break there, and then you can start filling this gap. So some possibilities there. Lyft, is it still getting beat up? Oh, it had a green day the other day. That's interesting to see. Okay, cool. So we've got, it's already given us some volumetric zones. I do like how it's holding these levels right here. These are, key levels that it's held with a nice hammer. Not a huge amount of volume, but not a lot of volume since it released. I would look for some confirmations and follow through. It's really got to get above the 60 level to start moving, right? So there's that as well. So good stuff, Raphael. This is true, Bruce. Yes, history does repeat, and study stock moves. Yeah, exactly. Study stock moves because it does repeat. And like Mark Twain says, it may not repeat exactly, but it certainly rhymes, right? So. Shirley, what's going on? Let's check out CGC. How many you got? Let's see. You got a few of those? Yeah, I'll try to get through as many as I can, 5 or so. CGC. Tricky little stock, so a couple nice pullbacks we had to the fib fan line. This is, one that we were looking at in the private Twitter feed too. Pushed to the downside here, consolidated, and then, held this very, very tricky price action in here, and then finally broke to the upside and launched, right? So, I mean, really tough there, but this is a nice belt hold bar, which could get some follow through to the upside. So I like that. I like when we finally broke out of the cloud, right? Messing in the cloud is tough, right? Unless you get some great, like that was a nice bar, but just couldn't quite break out yet. But here it finally did it, and then you had that nice move gap, and then a breakout of the cloud. So at this point, it is levels look pretty good. Just look for pullbacks, in that. So CY. Whew, that was a nice move right there. So got out of this other type of cloud I have right here. I use a couple different time frames, but I'm not saying it's super awesome, but it did serve as resistance up here, right? And then a nice breakout through it here. So so it could get some push to the upside. The only thing I did is I just changed the time frames on it. Instead of using the default 926 on this one, I changed it to 49,144, which are just some perfect square numbers that are interesting to use. So just see how I like how it closed over the upper Bollinger Band. Just be careful with overbought conditions on the RSI. It is an opportunity for a pullback. So just be careful with that. Amazon, yeah, I mean, Amazon is Amazon, right? So it's doing its thing. I mean, incredible action recently. I mean, a nice breakout through the upper pitchfork and the upper fib fan line. At this point, it's got some, big targets up ahead. So and if anything could do it, Amazon could do it, right? So, and it just had earnings too, so the premium should be a little bit more reasonable on the options. So, SNE, wow, yeah, big push the other day. Decent. I think they had like some other decent guidance type stuff too, and some ideas. So, again, nice move right there. Look for potential, continuation off of that. I think levels look pretty good. AMH, the American Homes. Again, just be careful here coming into earnings, Shirley. That's the only thing I could say. And you're at the upper Bollinger Band too, so definitely looking bullish. But upper Bollinger Band, watch for overbought, levels in the RSI. Once it gets there, it might get a pullback, and then you have earnings. So just be careful trading into earnings with that. COF, Capital One. Wow, that got a big move the other day, didn't it? Oh, did it have earnings already? Wow. Yeah, it's the 25th. Sorry. So yeah, it's a big push to the upside. I mean, big stuff. I mean, so it's got some levels up ahead. I mean, definitely could. It's definitely shooting back for 100. So that looks pretty interesting. And then EMPH. Looking good in the neighborhood. I'm missing some of your cup and handle, Shirley, but this gave a nice, remember, up, cup, handle, break. And so it's just kind of getting that follow through on that. But again, just always be careful with these these new high levels, right? You don't know if anybody's up there buying. So, but it is over $10, which the institutions really start to come in over $10. So something to look at there. Yeah, CRM. I guess let's take a look. CRM was that a Morningstar a couple days ago? Let's see. I was looking at the bar chart a second ago. It might have been. Let's just see. Sorry about the mess right here. So really close. We do want the real body to close below the bar, right?